In this video, I will give you some tips on working with font for use with your craft projects and with Cricut Design Space. In the past, before a project starts, I've been overwhelmed with the amount of fonts available. And as we all know, font can totally change the look of something because font matters. The two sites that I have found useful to view available fonts and download free fonts to my computer are wordmark.it and defont.com, and they're super easy to use, so I just wanted to take a couple minutes to show you how they work. So to use Wordmark, you have to first download it onto your browser, and it's really easy to do. So you would just go to wordmark.it and this will come up to download it. Then to use the program after it's downloaded, you just type in wordmark.it and you will enter the text that you plan to use in your project. I'm going to do some etched glass with Michigan State on it, and the site will bring up all of your available fonts that you have on your system, and it will show you what your text will look like in each one of those fonts. And so let's say I scroll through here and I don't see anything that's going to work for my project. So the next step I would go to is defont.com. And on this site you can download free fonts to use for your projects. And they have a bunch of genres, the new fonts, the top fonts, whatnot. So we'll try the top fonts. And first you're going to type your text in the preview. And I just wanted to take a second here to show it shows the history of what I have looked at before. And this booty call here was for an SVG file that I made for a reverse canvas once. It's a shout from the bathroom letting you know it's time to go wipe someone's butt. And I thought it was funny. No one in my family did, so I never made it. But anyway, so that's why I looked at the text booty call. So moving on, I'm going to look at Michigan State and how it looks on all these fonts. And you can see some of them with the T's being so close to one another, they run into each other, and I really don't like that. So this will show you how the spacing will look in the end project, and when you see something that you like, that you think may be a possibility, you just click download. It couldn't really be easier. Typically, it'll download to a download folder unless you have it automatically set up to go somewhere else. So then one tip I have when picking font, especially for the Cricut, if you know you're going to be cutting it, you might want to try a brush stroke or a wider stroke on the font, just because it'll cut easier. Sometimes the intricate cuts with delicate say paper, thin paper, or the heavier like chipboard, it's asking a lot to do really thin strokes, and so sometimes you just want the brush stroke there. So once you have it in your downloads folder, you might have to unzip it first. You'll go to applications and then open your font book, and you just add the font on here by clicking the plus sign, and you go to your downloads folder or wherever it was saved, and you will open that folder and click the OTF or TTF file, which are the font files, extensions that usually come in, and then you just open them. Then FontBook will show you a preview of the font that you just downloaded, and you're good to go. Now, one note here that if you have Cricut Design Space open before you put the fonts in your system fonts through FontBook, they will not show up as available to you. So if you have Design Space open, you'll have to close it completely down and then open it back up and start a new session. So in Cricut Design Space, I'm just going to start a new project, and I'm just going to add some text. Again, we're doing Michigan State, and so I'm just going to change the font, and I'm going to change it to one of the fonts I just downloaded, and you can see that the spacing is off, and I feel like Design Space could do better here, but for whatever reason it lets us do our own spacing, and so I guess they're trying to get you to use Cricut Access fonts. But anyway, so you'll have to manually move them. You can do that by changing the letter spacing, and sometimes that'll do the trick all by itself, and then you can see my state is not spaced properly, so I'm going to have to manually do it. So the first thing to move the letters individually is you'll have to ungroup the letters and then move them one by one or in groups as you move them over. And so you can see this little A is hanging out here and it's not attached to anything, and I'm just going to take a peek at what it looks like on the font and try to mimic or get what I think looks good and move it over. And so once you get it in the location that you want it in, you don't have to, but you might want to group it together in case you're adding other objects or images, maybe a Sparty head or whatever to the design. And so to group them all back together, very easy. You just select them all and then click on group. And so if you want to cut this project out and you go to make it, you'll see that on the cutting mat, on the preview, the letters will be all over the place, and obviously that's not what we want to do. So going back to the file, I think I'm going to move this state under the Michigan a little bit to be a different design. And so I'm going to group the state and the Michigan in their own group just so they're easier to move around and manipulate without stealing letters from one another. And when I'm satisfied with where it is in relation to each other, I'm going to just select it all and attach it. And once you do that, when you hit make it now, you can see that it'll come in together at this point. So that's exactly what I wanted to happen. And I will save this because I am going to etch it onto a glass. So one just quick note that if you're not familiar with the free program Inkscape, I highly recommend it. So most of the manipulation of the spacing of the letters would never have had to happen in Inkscape. It just knows. And from that program, you can export SVGs, PNGs, a bunch of different other file types. It's just really easy to use. And so I have the Inkscape here, and just a quick example, I'm adding text. I'm going to highlight it and change it to the same text that I used in Cricut Design Space, and to size it without losing the aspect ratio, you're just going to press the control button and grab a corner, and I obviously didn't press control that time, so undo, and press control, and then you're going to size it bigger, but you can see the spacing in it came in perfectly. I do not have to manipulate any of that, and it is good to go. Just pulling in graphics and making graphics so much easier in Inkscape, so I highly recommend it. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and visit bartoncraftbarn.com. I have some other tutorials on there that you can check out, and come back and see me soon. Thanks. Bye.